Hi, welcome to If I Did It, a show where we analyze and solve pure kerfuffles from a world not beyond. I'm your host, Alexi Old, author of 7 Secret Sources of Inspiration, a snappy guide for creative procrastinators. And joining me as always, it's John Nash from Show Money, and EUGENE'S Robinson from Aussie.com, author of Fight Everything You Ever Want to Know About Asking, or afraid to get your ass kicked for asking.
Sir.
Collectively, M.A. Pancholes.
What's up? Sorry.
Eugene,
Sir.
you're Darren Till.
I am Darren Till.
Instead of bashing trolls,
I want to go to a spa. Sorry.
instead of bashing trolls, questioning your commitment to family and race relations, why not flip the script, live and in public, if you will, and troll the trolls by incorporating these media mischaracterizations to build up your brand as the bull of the woods?
You know, if I'm Darren Till and I have a couple of brain cells working, which it seems like he does, he should know that any feelers he sends out about his place and space in the future cosmos of MMA should lead straight to PBR, by which I mean professional bull riding. Ever since that guy from Endeavor talked to me about PBR, it's like plate of shrimp from Repo Man. It's exactly like that. People who I wouldn't expect, like on the street, turn to me and go, professional bull riding. It's coming at me from all over the place. Now, the rumors spreading that we're going to see Johnny Boney Jr. return end of 2018, 2019, right? We all know that the Captain Ahab fight that's got to happen with him in DC. Now, that could happen, may not happen, but it seems very strange that all the top fights that happen at the end of the year seems like somebody's trying to make their nut on those billions of dollars. But Darren Till, man, you gotta know what is that great line? You gotta know where you are, man. You gotta know exactly where you are. And Darren Till is a non-story by all and every measure. He's got a bigger. If I was sitting here with him, I would say the same thing. He said, you are one loss away from being some guy who can't get his fucking phone calls returned. So what you need to do is, get to the gym and focus on not being that guy who is not getting his phone calls returned. If presuming you're not going to go to professional bull riding. So all of this internet shit, at a certain point, people are going to wise up and realize that they're just being played. The House of Outrage, the Umbrage, the Flame Wars, the fights, that stuff is, what is that? The thing Sunhouse calls it. Those are monkey shines, It's fucking foolishness. So Darren Till, insofar as you've got a media presence, which is, you got more friends on Twitter, whatever, do what you got to do. But burnishing a brand when you could be that guy who can't get his phone calls with it, that's foolish. Fuck it. Focus on training. In other words, ignore.
IGNORE. What do you think, John?
Well, there's a danger of going too far in anything that you'll be labeled. You don't want to get engaged with the trolls to the point where you can be labeled a racist or anything like that. But there's also a point you gotta own it for attention. He's not famous enough yet where he can cross the line and be forgiven. He's not Conor McGregor. He can do anything and they'll forgive him. He's also not to the point where people know him enough where he's not so famous that if he screws up, they won't push him to the back burner. So he's got to walk that line. And if I'm him, I own the fact that I won't see my kids. I I don't give a shit about my family. I go out and blatantly say that. And then on the trolls, the trolls I completely ignore, but stuff like the bar fights, wasn't that him in the video fighting outside a bar?
Labeled like what? Fighting black dudes or something?
Yeah. Forget that and go, I would just, you got to be careful. Again, this is where I'm talking. You have to walk that narrow line. Is you got to say, no, this guy challenged me. I fought him. I'll beat up any mofo anywhere, anytime that wants to fight me. You're a fighter. I go, I don't care about my kids. I'll fight anybody. That's the line you got to walk. You can't fight the line as, You can't get in the line where like, oh, I'm looking for fights with black dudes. That's the dangerous part you don't want to get into. You want to stick the line that you'll fight anybody. You're an equal opportunity asshole. That's what you got to stick to. That's got to be your message. So, and I'm sure that's terrible advice. I'm looking at Eugene has a little bit of a look like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty bad advice because you know what? I read a celebrity woman who said that the number one bane, and I can't remember who she was, but it was like one of these people. If you heard the name, you go, "Oh yeah," like I don't really like her movies, but I know who she is. And she said the number one bane of her existence it happened to be tabloids. You know, it creates an unexpected and unreasonable drag on your actual real life relationship because it has you second guessing shit. You know, if it's you're in the supermarket or your assistant's in the supermarket and says, "Look what I found," and there's an article about why was so and so's husband over here, and you know how many places do you go that you forget to tell your fucking wife or your girlfriend or your friend or even for anybody. You might forget, and then suddenly there's some guy there with a paparazzi. You ever fly through LAX and wonder why those guys are hanging around with cameras? They're not there to photograph their sisters coming in. That's their job, man, to catch you doing shit. And you know, saying stuff like, "I don't care about my family. I just want to fight black dudes." Yeah, so you play to the trolls. Guess who's going home to a darkened house? You know, great, because the wife fucking left. She took the kids and she left. Why? Because you're not making enough for me to put up with this bullshit. Fuck you, I'm gone.
The thing you got to consider is that I don't like Darren Till, and my advice was designed to ruin his life. That's what you got to. Okay. That's what you got to consider. Just to get
I got it. Mind. I got it. Okay, sorry. Don't listen to that, Darren Till. Do what John said, because I don't feel strong enough about the guy to feel one way or another. Why do you hate him?
I don't. He just doesn't. He's not the. The one thing I hate about him is the love he gets at this point without proving it. There's just he's got a certain amount of local fanboyism that go nuts for him, and I'm like, well, his victories haven't been that impressive. His kickboxing Muay Thai is not. I wouldn't label him.
We call it North Buddhism.
Kind of North Buddhism.
No, North Buddhism. That's what that's called. We
call that, or you call it? You refer to it as?
No, we all those guys who are not you, who are in the know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like I think his post Wonder Boy Octagon like rant, I loved it, but it didn't match up with the fight. I totally agree. It's like, I destroy them. I don't care who it is. Get these Colts in the way. And it's like, did you just that's for like a fight where you knock someone out the first round, or
and you didn't show up
destroy them, but like a lot of hugging and high five and like It's not the.
But you do realize, of course, we are junkies talking to junkies. That should be our fucking tagline: by junkies for junkies. I mean, because there's nobody who was like, any casuals here? I don't think so. Any casuals give a fuck who Darren Till is? And I'm not even talking about cat. We have to redefine casual, because Leopoldo Serral, who actually has a fucking share dog, Fight Finder page, and has upwards of 18 fights, he doesn't know who these guys are. So it's not, and he's not a casual. He's like been in the cage, fought fucking David Loiseau, actually fought big shows, and was considered for the Ultimate Fighter TV show, and doesn't know who these guys are, man. Okay, so he's out of it 10 years. He's about 10 years. He tuned in about 3 fights ago, watched the fights out of curiosity. Doesn't know who he is.
Well, there's just too many people now to keep track. I mean, I used to watch every event that played, and now I've narrowed it down to like basically the main events for most of them. Or not the main events, but the main card. But it's just when you have 600 guys in the UFC always rotating, and you got 100, maybe 100 guys that are of noteworthy in Bellator, and then another 50, 100 in the other. It's like you're getting close to 1,000 people every year. And they keep rotating in and out. Who's worth keeping track of? No way. My mind's got limited space. We are evolved to only recognize like 150 people.
Yep. Well, they say if you run into a room and run out of the room, your brain is only capable of registering that you have 5 things on the table. 5. If you have 7 things on the table and they say, okay, you ran through the room, could you tell that is a flashlight, there's a lamp, there's a picture, and now you get to 6, you don't know what the fuck is going on. So, but also, I mean, that's there are a lot of actors in Hollywood. I probably know more actors in Hollywood than I know active fighters. Why? Because their brand, their business is getting us to pay attention, right? Artists in development. That's a real thing. Or used to be a real thing in the music industry. It's a real thing in the film industry, right? You hire an agent. That's what they're going to do for you.
And we thought that was going to happen with Endeavor taking over and be like Connor.
Yeah. Well, if you're a professional bull rider, it for sure would be happening with you.
Can you name some professional bull riders for us, Eugene?
I can't, but I tell you, I know lots of people who are super geeked about it. And there's a Staples Center event coming up that celebrities will be at. And I'm not talking about Anthony Kiedis either.
I know people that are fans. I know, yeah. I'm from from where I'm from, not as many, but you go to like the Dakotas, there's a lot of bull riding fans. Dakotas, Montana.
Well, what blows my mind is that spectator sports kind of come from an interesting place. Like most people who like track, is it the case that most people who like track and field have? Is it that most people who like track and field have actually run track and field, or why? Where does the affection come from? I guess my point is that I don't know anybody who's ridden a bull. And I used to be, I was married into a ranch family, for 20 years. So,
I thought there was more to that story, didn't you?
No. I decided to.
I just thought it was a massively pregnant pause. Like there's some dramatic effect on it.
No. It was I started to drift, but the reality of it is nobody's fucking. But people are excited about it. Why? I haven't been able to figure that out. Well, maybe because it's like cliff diving, something that's dangerous and daring that uses a fuck. I'm not going to do that. Let those guys do it. Like I on the plane back, I watched Point Break, the new version, not the Keanu Reeves version, which is the definitive version, but the new one. And these guys are doing all that stupid base jumping shit and using the flying suits. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I could watch this for a couple hours because I have no intention or interest in doing it myself. So maybe that's the thing. But I mean, MMA, shit, man, how many karate schools are there? How many? It was created to solve that barroom argument about which was the best martial arts, which have been raging forever. We're a collection of like martial arts enthusiasts, right? On some level, I would expect it to be a lot more popular than bull riding, but it blows because more people can do it. Like people can play soccer. Why? It's a huge sport. Kick the ball around, but I don't know. I'm bamboozled.
Well, if you're bamboozled, let's see, John, if you can help unbamboozle the boozling, because you're the UFC. Do you care more about TJ Dillashaw fighting Henry Cejudo, Dominick Cruz, or Geronta Davis?
Your choices are not the greatest to begin with, I guess, for the UFC. None of them are a high priority for me. I would say if I'm the UFC, well, I guess the Davis fight only because I don't have any faith Dominick Cruz will be healthy as much as he would be the natural top fight because they have a rivalry and he can talk. But does anybody have any faith that guy's going to be healthy? Strong gust of wind seems to hurt him right now. Cejudo, there's no interest in him moving up. That ain't going to draw. Davis, if you can actually get a boxer into a UFC ring after the Conor McGregor event, Mayweather-McGregor, you might be able to get some momentum on it. You're not going to do anything like those numbers, but you could probably put them on a pay-per-view and add a little bit of numbers to it, and also get a little bit of the shine back to the UFC. Like, look how bad a UFC fighter beats the crap out of a boxer when it's in the cage. So that'd be my number one choice. But the problem is Davis is going to want what he's making in boxing right now, which is at least $1 million a fight for those type of fights. And they wouldn't give that to Demetrius Johnson. So is it worth the UFC to give that to Davis, who's probably going to ask for it maybe 2 or 3 times that much to get embarrassed in the cage? So I guess for the UFC's point of view is I dissolve all the divisions below 145 pounds for men and don't worry about any of them.
Man,
that's
what about you, Eugene?
I don't know, man. Am I the only one who is being made depressed by this?
Depressed in what way? Just that there's nothing interesting for. I like TJ Dillashaw, so.
Yeah, I like TJ. I agree with probably 100% of what you said, except for that you didn't take it off the edge of that cliff and get to the depression part. Like I didn't like TJ Dillashaw until the second time he beat Garbrandt. And I say that because I thought he was a pale imitation of Dominick Cruz. But there's something interesting that happened. And
figuratively and literally.
Yes. And I was taking a trigonometry test in high school. And the times that I put your pencils down, I turned to my friend Kenny, Robert Dielenschneider, I go, fuck. What's the answer to number 11? He just tells me, and I just write the answer on the paper. Right? So next day, Mr. Crapanzano gives me the paper back, and I get like a 82. And I go, what's this with the 82? You gave me this one wrong. It's the right answer. He goes, I tell you what, Playboy, you come to the board right now, and you show me the work on this, and I'll give you the 10 points. So naturally, I take the chalk, I get up, I do all the work, and he looks at it and goes, hey, dude, gives me 10 points. Because after the class, I was really interested in knowing how to do it. So I had another friend of mine, Kenny Ryer, explain to me how you fucking did it. And that's why the next day I knew how to do it. That's TJ Dillashaw. You know, he was a pale imitation of Dominick Cruz, but in the beating Garbrandt the second time, the guy has proven himself to be both educable and interesting in evolution. So I like him too. That's his shorthand. I like Dominick Cruz as well. I started to figure out that he was smarter than the average bear. I started to learn a lot from him, actually, watching him fight. But the injury thing, don't know whether it's his team, like Khabib, you know, little guy and a big guy team is always getting hurt. Don't know. Can't figure it out. But, you know, this thing with Davis, it's like, man, doesn't it feel like your least smart friend is running things at the UFC? Doesn't that feel that way? Am I the only one who feels that way? You know, you probably have friends from like the smart. Right. I have a range of friends. I have like friends who are way smarter than me, like bona fide geniuses, right? And then I have friends that are like, you know, well, God rest his soul, Frenchie was a great guy, but you know, huffing fucking glue, smoking angel dust, and dancing drunkenly around at a party with a chainsaw that was on is not anybody's idea of smart living. And indeed, Frenchie at this point in time is dead. So we have a whole range of friends, but doesn't it feel like Frenchie is running the UFC to you?
My Frenchie's goofy.
Oh yeah, is he? Is it?
Guy that did 8 balls while trying to pick up $20 prostitutes. That was his idea of a good old time.
Was he successful in this regard?
Oh, he was very successful. He was a master of it.
He was the best 8-baller, 22 hooker guy, $20 hooker guy.
But he is no longer with us as well. And but yeah, Goofy and Frenchie, I think, are the two new William and Morris execs running the UFC. Is that what you're saying?
Man.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. When the boxing world, I mean, first of all, there's a massive truism, and that massive truism is that I don't give a shit what nobody will convince me otherwise. UFC fighters are underpaid, across the board, underpaid. I don't give a shit. Nobody, unless you start showing me facts and figures and let me sit down with Mr. Steve, my accountant, I'm not buying it. Not buying it at all. That $5,000 is all I can afford because you don't move the needle. Fuck you. The ass in the seat. That's a needle move. I mean, I don't know. So these guys are all, and when you bring in boxers, it's I don't know, man. It reminds me of like when they would bring international observers in the concentration camps and they would make the band play music.
Damn, man, you all depressing.
I went to Auschwitz when I was over there.
I know. That's what I'm saying. The showstopper was good. Depressing episode. They bring in the depression here.
I'm helping with morale, man.
That's right.
He didn't say which way to help it. He didn't say help it up. I'm helping it down. So.
Well, speaking of helping it down, morale and evil, talk about the concentration camps. John, who's in your Legion of Doom?
Well, I don't know if this is going to make anybody feel better, but I got to be careful because I haven't got confirmation on this yet, but I'm sure everybody heard of this. Let's say there's a female fighter in the UFC who stood by her man when he was being ragged on for perhaps having inappropriate fascist Nazi tattoos. And she stood by him through all the criticism, said he was a great guy, even he served time in prison for stuff. And this guy now apparently, supposedly, possibly have been confirmed, then abused this woman that stood by him abused her terribly, and now is on the run after this. Well, that guy, I don't know if he's a pure supervillain in the Legion of Doom quite sense, but if you ever saw the movie Cape Fear, either version, that guy's a splitting image of Max Cady, and that's the villain.
Counselor.
You got a real juicy daughter.
Yeah.
Robert Mitchum's, well, both versions. So,
well, my favorite thing is he holds up the $10 bill. That mean anything to you? You don't know how many times I've used that line, but of course it doesn't work in this context. People, the waitress is like, yeah, you can leave it as a tip. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry. I stepped on your Legion of Doom.
No, that was about it, because I don't want to go. Until I get more confirmation, I don't want to say too much. But yeah, everybody, I'm sure everybody knows.
Right? That's what that is.
But that person is if that is true, that person is such a douchebag. They deserve membership on my Legion of Doom.
Man. Who deserves it?
Nobody. I got nobody aggressively in the Lost Battalion, but I do have a special category thing that I'm mulling over, and it has to do with snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and I'm going to call it this far out as a harbinger of very, very bad things. And I'm sure you guys talked about it in the last show, which I didn't get to do or watch because I've been running since I've been back. But the Khabib thing, I think that is in literary terms, we might call that foreshadowing. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm still not ready to make my pick this many months out because there's a whole injury factor. There's a whole dolly against the side of the bus factor. There's a dancing on the tables in Ibiza with a cardboard cut of your face on your face factor. But I think Khabib's is beatable, his record notwithstanding. And I'm not actually being fooled by all of the videos that he's been putting up on his Instagram feed with him doing stand-up stuff. And as well as a quote that hit the paper today, hit the news today about how McNuggets doesn't have enough time to get good at his wrestling. Yeah. It's like, yeah, bro, what do you think that's your weak points to a fairly astute? In other words, if you were across the table from a Javier Mendez, he has a list of your weak points. And he's got, and if you're a McNuggets, you're probably training to them. Absolutely no interest in going to the ground with you. But if he was going to go to the ground with you, he has less to worry about with a Khabib than he does a Diaz. Right. I started my day-to-day training against a guy who's a college wrestler, and so he gets me, and my shoulders are on the mat, and he's lost. And this guy's like a blue belt. He's lost. Sweep him, mount him, and then what? So I think that the homeless person thing was assholeish, and shows me a guy who's not focused, man, and he's not.
Well, his fans and Russian bots were focused in the comments section. Woo!
Oh yeah, well, that's okay because Russia has a very different understanding. You know why? Because there's a call in Russia, and it's called winter. As the Nazis would have discovered the hard way. So, the homeless issue is maybe even with global warming not as aggressive. I didn't see any homeless people when I was in St. Petersburg. I saw poor people. I didn't see any homeless people. But I guess maybe, there are lots of places in which the fact that might makes right makes shit like that okay. And in fact, if you remember the bum fights, that was a pretty serious. And I actually, as total disclosure, got the URL for bum fucks, which I was thinking was going to be like hot women have sex with homeless dudes. And I could justify this because the bum fights thing was just about guys like being exploited and hurting each other. And, there was no pleasure involved. Whereas bum fucks, the bums would be getting, can you imagine you show up with like a high priced call girl and you say, you're going to have sex with her. And the guy would be so fucking happy. And you put it on a website and you make $1 million. Well, of course, the reality of it is, though I got the URL, I was beaten to it by Russians.
Man.
That is the second most degrading porn idea I've ever heard.
Well, it just goes to show you that if I'm disgusted by the do some fucking push-ups for rubles thing, that should put that in perspective for you.
Yeah. The only worst one was a guy I knew, and he seriously pitched this to me. I'm like, I want no part in this. He wanted to get mentally handicapped people to having sex.
Yeah.
And he wanted to call it fucking R.
Oh, man.
That was his title series. He had it all planned out. And I'm like,
but, we say that. We kind of groan and stuff. But those guys at bum fights made a lot of money. But I don't condone it. There are lots of ways to make money that I wouldn't condone. Money's an abstraction. Like the Oxbow song says, that's the money. That's not why we even pay it. To see you crawl, money is insignificant. Just want to see what kind of shit you'll eat for it. That's why it's there.
Damn.
I mean, of course, it's like if you know your Bible, the whole story of God and Job,
Yep.
And at the end of the story, God is like all triumphant. See, look at Job. He's a good man. He stuck true. And I always envision Satan as long as I've been reading that story. And he's like, hey, yeah, God, you really got me. Anybody else? Any other faithful servants you got that I could torture for a solid fucking year before I lose the bet? Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Follow us on Twitter, EUGENE'S Robinson, Alexio, Hey Not the Face.
Or Mr. Sleep 3 on Instagram, but that's a closed community. In other words, I gotta see on your page before I let you see on my page.
That's right. Show you yours before he shows you his at Facebook. I make Pancholes.
Pancholes.
Who gives a thumbs up, Eugene?
It's been a while, man. Ding, 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 ding.
You should have seen those dueling thumbs up last week between Nate and John.
Oh. Actually, they weren't dueling thumbs up. Those guys were just arguing. They're like, fuck you. Fuck you. And you thought they were dueling.
Subscribe to MainNation.com, YouTube, MainNation on iTunes, visit Bloody Elbow, buy Seven Secret Sources Inspiration, buy Oxford, Sin, Black Duke, and Boonwell's Easy Way Out, wherever fine music is sold. Listen to Literal Podcast, even though Nate's not here. And make sure you watch Show Money. And immediately following the show, check out the Shoes Fit. How do they do that, Eugene?
Right below this picture, like somewhere below my finger. Not where your porn browser is, but there's a link. And that link will take you to If the Shoes Fit. We're going to log out, and we're going to log back in, and we'll see you in 90 seconds. The link right below. No confusion.
That's right down there.
Yeah, the other half of the show.
We'll be back next week in another installment of If I Did It. And we don't know what we're going to be talking about yet because of PR mistakes yet to be made.